Inside the elegantly decorated ballroom, the charity gala was already in full swing. Round tables adorned with fresh flowers filled the space, and a soft murmur of conversation created a warm atmosphere. Energized the room, the guests turning their heads and smiling as they approached the main table. Catherine gracefully navigated through the crowd, stopping frequently to speak with donors, charity workers, and families who had been helped by the mental health initiatives. Her natural ability to connect with people was on full display as she listened intently to a mother sharing how the charity had helped her teenage son through a difficult period. Meanwhile, William found himself in conversation with the charity's director, but his attention kept drifting to his children's interactions with the other guests. Charlotte had discovered a group of children near the silent auction table and was showing remarkable social skills for her age, asking questions about the various items on display and genuinely listening to the answers. George, true to his thoughtful nature, had struck up a conversation with an elderly gentleman who turned out to be one of the charity's founding members. The man was visibly delighted to explain the organization's history to such an attentive young listener, and George's sincere questions impressed everyone within earshot. Louis, despite his young age, was proving to be quite the charmer. He had somehow acquired a small balloon from somewhere and was sharing it with other children, creating an impromptu game that had several little ones giggling and following him around like a tiny parade. "Your children are absolutely wonderful," said Margaret Thompson, the charity's chief executive. As she approached Catherine, "They're interacting so naturally with everyone here. It's clear they understand the importance of what we're doing." Catherine beamed with maternal pride. "We've tried to teach them that service isn't just about formal duties. It's about connecting with people and showing genuine care for their well-being." The formal program began with speeches from various charity representatives and beneficiaries. William took the podium first, delivering remarks about the critical importance of mental health support for children and families. His speech was heartfelt and personal, referencing his own experiences and the lessons he hoped to pass on to his children. "As a father," William said, his voice carrying clearly through the room, "I've learned that the most important gift we can give our children is the knowledge that they are valued, supported, and never alone in facing life's challenges." The audience responded with warm applause, but what happened next would become the moment everyone remembered most. As William concluded his remarks, Louis slipped away from his chair and toddled up to the podium. Instead of causing disruption, he simply stood beside his father, looking up at the crowd with innocent curiosity. William paused, smiled down at his youngest son, and gently lifted him up. "It seems my colleague here has something to add," he said with good humor, causing the entire room to erupt in delighted laughter. Louis, now secure in his father's arms, waved enthusiastically at the crowd and said clearly into the microphone, "Hello, everyone." His small voice carried through the sound system, and the collective awe from the audience was audible. Catherine, watching from her seat, felt her heart swell with emotion. This wasn't planned, but it perfectly embodied everything they were trying to communicate about family support and unconditional love. Charlotte, not to be outdone by her little brother's spontaneous moment, stood up from her chair and began clapping enthusiastically, which prompted George to join her. Soon, the entire room was on its feet, applauding not just for the speech, but for the genuine family moment they had just witnessed. When William stepped down from the podium, still carrying Louis, he was immediately surrounded by guests who wanted to express their appreciation. The conversations were different now, warmer and more personal. People shared their own family stories, spoke about their children's challenges and triumphs, and thanked the Wales family for showing that even royal families face the same joys and concerns as everyone else. A photographer from the charity captured the moment when all 5 family members were together near the auction table, examining a painting donated by a local artist. The image would later be described as showing the royal family at their most natural and approachable, with genuine smiles and relaxed body language that spoke to their comfort with each other and their commitment to the cause they were supporting. The afternoon continued with more informal interactions, and by the time they prepared to leave, It was clear that this event had been more than just a successful fundraiser. It had been a demonstration of how authentic family connections could inspire others and create meaningful change in their community. The morning sun cast a golden glow over Kensington Palace as Catherine, Princess of Wales, stood before her bedroom mirror, carefully adjusting her elegant navy dress. Today was different from their usual royal engagements. The annual charity gala for children's mental health was close to her heart, and she knew this event would be particularly meaningful for their family. William had already left early for a brief meeting with the event organizers, leaving Catherine to manage the morning routine with their 3 children. 8-year-old Prince George was unusually quiet as he ate his breakfast, while 6-year-old Princess Charlotte chattered excitedly about wearing her new dress. 4-year-old Prince Louis, ever the bundle of energy, was already dressed, but had somehow managed to get jam on his shirt. "Mummy, will there be lots of people there?" Charlotte asked, her eyes bright with curiosity as she watched her mother fix Louis's appearance for the 3rd time. Catherine smiled warmly at her daughter. "Yes, darling, but remember what we talked about. These are all people who care about helping children, just like we do." The preparation had been weeks in the making. This wasn't just another royal appearance. It was a chance for the Wales family to show their united support for a cause that had become central to their public work. Catherine had been patron of several children's mental health organizations, and William had long advocated for breaking the stigma around mental health discussions. As they prepared to leave, George approached his mother with a thoughtful expression. "Mom, Papa said we're helping children today. How do we do that? Just by going to a party?" Catherine knelt down to George's level, her voice gentle but clear. "Sometimes, George, showing up and letting people see that we care is the first step. When people see our family together supporting something important, it encourages others to help too." The drive to the venue was filled with the children's excited chatter and occasional reminders about proper behavior. Louis kept pressing his face against the window, waving at people on the streets, while Charlotte practiced her curtsy and George asked thoughtful questions about the charity work they were supporting. Upon arriving at the Grand Hotel where the gala was being held, they could see the gathered crowd of photographers and supporters. William was already there, looking distinguished in his dark suit, greeting guests and speaking with charity representatives. His face lit up as he spotted their car approaching. "Remember," Catherine said softly to her children as they prepared, "to step out. We're here to show people that families stick together and support each other. That's the most important message we can share today." The moment their car door opened, Charlotte was the first to step out, her confidence surprising even her parents. She immediately spotted her father and ran toward him with the unself-conscious joy that only a 6-year-old could display. William's formal demeanor melted instantly as he scooped up his daughter, his genuine laughter echoing across the courtyard. George followed with more reserved dignity, but his smile was unmistakable. As he joined his father and sister, Louis, not to be outdone, toddled over as quickly as his little legs could carry him, reaching up to be included in what was rapidly becoming an impromptu family embrace. Catherine watched this scene unfold with a mixture of pride and amusement. This wasn't the carefully choreographed entrance they had planned, but it was infinitely more authentic. The photographers captured every moment, but more importantly, the genuine warmth and connection between the family members was evident to everyone present. The crowd of supporters and charity workers who had gathered seemed to collectively exhale with delight. Here was the royal family, not as distant figures fulfilling duty, but as a real family sharing a moment of pure joy and connection. Children in the crowd pointed and smiled, parents nodded approvingly, and the charity organizers beamed with satisfaction. As William lifted Louis onto his shoulders and took Charlotte's hand, while George walked proudly beside his mother, they began their approach to the venue entrance. The formality of the occasion hadn't been lost, but it had been enhanced by the genuine family dynamic that made them relatable and inspiring. To the people they served, this spontaneous display of family affection and unity set the tone for what would become one of their most memorable public appearances, proving that sometimes the most powerful royal moments happen when protocol gives way to authentic human connection. As the formal portion of the gala concluded, The Wales family was invited to tour the charity's interactive display area, where children and families could learn about mental health resources through games and activities. This part of the event hadn't been heavily publicized, but it would prove to be where the most meaningful connections were made. The display area had been set up like a series of colorful stations, each designed to help children understand emotions and coping strategies. In age-appropriate ways, there were art therapy corners, quiet reading spaces, and interactive games that taught breathing techniques and mindfulness exercises. Charlotte immediately gravitated toward a station where children were creating feelings, flowers, artwork that helped them identify and express different emotions through colors and shapes. She sat down next to a shy 7-year-old named Emma, whose mother had brought her to the event after she had received help from the charity's counseling services. "Like your flower," Charlotte said genuinely, admiring Emma's careful work with purple and yellow petals. Purple is my favorite color, too. "What does it mean on your flower?" Emma looked up, surprised to be addressed so naturally by the princess. "It means when I feel scared," she said quietly. "But my counselor taught me that scared feelings don't last forever." Charlotte nodded seriously. "That's really smart." "Yes, sometimes. I feel scared too, like when I have to speak in front of lots of people. But Mummy tells me that brave people feel scared sometimes, and they do important things anyway." Meanwhile, George had discovered a reading corner where teenage volunteers were sharing stories with younger children about overcoming challenges. He listened intently as a 16-year-old named Jake talked about how he had learned to manage anxiety with the charity's help. "I used to think something was wrong with me," Jake explained to the small group, "but I learned that lots of people feel anxious, and there are ways to make it better." George raised his hand thoughtfully. "My papa talks about mental health, eh? Lot in his work. Says it's just as important as physical health, right?" Jake smiled, impressed by the young prince's understanding. "Exactly. Just like you'd see a doctor if you broke your arm. You can get help if your feelings are hurt or confusing." William and Catherine watched these interactions with profound pride and emotion. They had hoped their children would understand the importance of their charitable work, but seeing them engage so naturally and empathetically exceeded their expectations at another station. Louis had found himself surrounded by toddlers and their parents at a sensory play area designed to help very young children learn emotional regulation. Despite being the youngest royal present, Louis was showing remarkable leadership, helping other children share toys and demonstrating the breathing exercises he had learned from his own experiences with childhood emotions. "He's incredible with the other children," observed Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a child psychologist who worked with the charity. "He has this natural ability to make others feel included and safe." Catherine joined the group around Louis, kneeling down to participate in the activities alongside the other parents. Her presence was calming rather than overwhelming, and soon she was deep in conversation with other mothers about the challenges and joys of raising young children. "It's so refreshing to see that you face the same daily struggles we do," admitted one mother whose 3-year-old was playing happily with Louis. "Sometimes we forget that parenting is hard for everyone, regardless of circumstances." "Absolutely," Catherine replied warmly. Louis went through a phase where he refused to wear anything but his dinosaur costume for 2 weeks straight. Some battles aren't worth fighting, and some are opportunities to teach flexibility and creativity. The relaxed atmosphere allowed for conversations that went beyond the typical formal exchanges of royal engagements. William found himself in deep discussion with fathers about work-life balance and the pressures of providing emotional support for their families while managing their own stress. "The charity taught me that asking for help isn't weakness," shared one father. "My son saw me struggling and started believing that men don't talk about feelings. Coming here changed that for both of us." William nodded thoughtfully. "That's exactly why we do this work. Breaking those cycles of silence and showing that everyone deserves support and understanding." As the afternoon progressed, the boundaries between the royal family and the other families present seemed to dissolve naturally. Children were playing together regardless of their backgrounds. Parents were sharing advice and encouragement. And the common goal of supporting children's well-being created a sense of community that transcended social differences. Photographers captured candid moments throughout the afternoon, Charlotte and Emma working together on their art project. George listening intently to Jake's story. Louise leading a group of toddlers in a simple game. William engaged in serious conversation with other fathers, and Catherine laughing with a group of mothers as they watched their children play. These images would later be used in the charities' promotional materials. But more importantly, it documented authentic moments of connection and understanding that would inspire the organization's work for years to come. The Wales family had shown that royal service could be both dignified and deeply personal, formal yet genuine. As the afternoon activities wound down, an unexpected moment arose that would become the most talked about aspect of the entire event. A group of children who had been receiving services from the charity approached the Wales family with a special presentation they had prepared in secret. 10-year-old Marcus, who had been working with the charity's counselors to overcome selective mutism, stepped forward as the group's spokesperson. His hands trembled slightly as he held a handmade book, but his voice was clear and determined. "Your Royal Highnesses," he began, using the formal address he had practiced, "we made something for you to say. Thank you for caring about kids like us." The book, titled Our Brave Stories, contained drawings and short writings from children who had been helped by the charity. Each page represented a different child's journey from struggle to hope. Illustrated in colorful crayon drawings and accompanied by simple but powerful words, Charlotte was the first to respond. With genuine curiosity, "Did you make this all by yourselves? It's beautiful." Marcus nodded, gaining confidence. "We all drew pictures of what made us sad, and then what made us happy again. The counselors helped us understand that both feelings are okay to have." George moved closer to examine the book, his natural thoughtfulness evident as he studied each page carefully. "This picture's really good," he said, pointing to a drawing of a child surrounded by supportive figures. "Is this you with your family and counselors?"
Yes,
replied 8-year-old Sophia, another contributor to the book. "I drew it after I learned that having lots of people care about you makes you stronger, not weaker." William and Catherine exchanged a meaningful look, both visibly moved by the children's initiative and Marcus's courage in speaking publicly despite his previous challenges with communication. "This is incredible," William said, accepting the book with reverence. "May we read some of it together?" The children nodded eagerly, and an impromptu circle formed on the carpet of the activity area. Adults and children sat together as William opened the book and began reading the stories aloud. Each page revealed remarkable insights from young minds who had faced difficulties and found ways to overcome them with help and support. One story, written by 9-year-old Amara, particularly resonated with everyone present. "I used to think my worried thoughts meant I was broken, but my counselor taught me that worried thoughts are like storm clouds. They're scary when they're happening. They always pass, and sometimes there's a rainbow after." Louis, despite his young age, seemed to understand the emotional weight of the moment. He moved closer to Marcus and patted his arm gently, offering the kind of wordless comfort that children often provide more naturally than adults. "You're really brave for talking to us," Louis said simply. "I get scared talking to lots of people too, but you did great." Marcus smiled broadly, the genuine acceptance and encouragement from someone closer to his own age, clearly meaning more than any formal praise could have provided. Charlotte had been studying the artwork with the intensity she usually reserved for her favorite picture books. "I want to draw pictures like these," she announced. "Can you teach me how to draw feelings?" This request sparked an immediate art session, with the charity children eagerly showing the royal children various techniques for expressing emotions through drawing. Soon, all the children present were collaborating on a large piece of paper, creating a collective artwork that represented hope, friendship, and mutual support. Catherine found herself in conversation with the parents of the children who had created the book. "Your children have shown incredible strength and creativity," she told them. "But it's clear they've had wonderful support from their families too." "The charity taught us that we couldn't fix everything for our children," admitted Marcus's mother. "But we could learn better ways to support them and advocate for what they needed." This conversation highlighted one of the most important aspects of the charity's work: supporting entire families, not just the children who were directly receiving services. The Wales family's presence was validating this approach and showing that strong family connections were indeed central to children's well-being. As the collaborative artwork took shape, it became clear that something special was happening. Formal barriers between the royal family and the other families had completely dissolved. Children were laughing together, sharing stories, and teaching each other. Parents were exchanging contact information and making plans for future playdates. William observed this scene with profound satisfaction. "This is exactly what we hoped would happen," he told the charity director. "When children see that they're not alone in their struggles, and when families connect with each other, that's when real healing and growth can occur." The afternoon concluded with a group photo, but not the traditional formal arrangement usually required for royal events. Instead, all the children involved in creating the book stood together, with the Wales family naturally integrated among them. Everyone holding corners of the collaborative artwork they had created together. The image captured that day would become iconic, not because of its royal subjects, but because it perfectly represented the charity's mission of bringing children and families together in support of mental health and emotional well-being. As the Wales family prepared to leave the charity event, what should have been a routine departure transformed into an extended series of heartfelt goodbyes that demonstrated the genuine connections that had been formed throughout the afternoon. Marcus, who had found his voice during the presentation, approached Prince George with a small folded piece of paper. "I wrote this for you," he said quietly. "My counselor taught me that writing down thoughts helps when speaking feels too hard." George unfolded the note carefully and read it silently, his expression growing serious and then breaking into a warm smile. "Thank you, Marcus. This is really special. I'm going to keep it in my room so I can remember what you taught me today about being brave." The note, which would later be framed and placed on George's desk, contained a simple but profound message. Being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do good things even when you feel scared. Thank you for being brave enough to care about kids like me. Meanwhile, Charlotte had become deeply engaged in a conversation with Emma and Sophia about their shared interest in art and drawing feelings. The three girls had discovered they all loved horses and had made plans to write letters to each other about their favorite activities. "Mummy," Charlotte whispered to Catherine, "can Emma come to visit us sometime? She knows so much about drawing, and I want to show her my art supplies." Catherine smiled at her daughter's natural inclination toward friendship and inclusion. "We'll definitely explore that possibility, darling. It's wonderful that you've made such a good friend today." Louis had gathered a small group of toddlers around him and was leading them in a game he had invented on the spot involving gentle clapping and simple songs. The other parents watched with amusement and appreciation, as their usually reserved children opened up under Louis's encouraging leadership. "He has a gift for making others feel included," observed one father. "My daughter is usually very shy, but she's been laughing and playing freely all afternoon." William was engaged in what had become an impromptu planning session with several of the fathers present. They had discovered common ground in their concerns about raising emotionally healthy children in an increasingly complex world, and several had expressed interest in forming an ongoing support group. "The charity could facilitate that," suggested Dr. Mitchell, who had been observing these natural connections with professional interest. "We've seen tremendous benefits when parents continue supporting each other beyond our formal programs." "That would be incredibly valuable," William agreed. "Sometimes the most important work happens in the conversations between parents who understand each other's challenges." As they finally began moving toward the exit, the charity children had organized themselves into an informal receiving line, not for protocol reasons, but because each child wanted to share one final thought or word of appreciation with the royal family members. The elderly gentleman who had spoken with George earlier approached with tears in his eyes. "In 40 years of working with this charity, I've never seen children respond to visitors the way they responded to your family today. You didn't just visit them, you truly saw them and valued them as individuals." Catherine felt her own emotions rising as she looked back at the scene. They were leaving. Children and parents were lingering, reluctant to end the connections that had been formed. The collaborative artwork was being carefully preserved by the charity staff. More importantly, the relationships and understanding that had developed would continue long after the event ended. Today changed something for all of us, Catherine told Margaret Thompson. Our children learned lessons about empathy and service that no amount of instruction could have provided. They saw firsthand how their presence and attention could make a real difference in other children's lives. The charity director nodded thoughtfully. Our children learned that they have value and voices that deserve to be heard. When George listened so intently to their stories, when Princess Charlotte shared her art supplies so generously, when Prince Louis included everyone in his games, these actions communicated respect and acceptance more powerfully than any therapy session could. As they reached their vehicle, William turned back for one final wave to the group that had gathered to see them off. The scene was remarkable. Children and adults of various backgrounds and circumstances, brought together by a shared commitment to supporting children's mental health and emotional well-being. Papa George said as they settled into their car, "Can we come back and visit these friends again?" "I think that can definitely be arranged," William replied. Recognizing that this event had marked the beginning of something more significant than a single, charitable appearance, Charlotte was already planning her next art project. Inspired by the techniques she had learned from Emma and Sophia, Louis had fallen asleep almost immediately, exhausted by the afternoon's social activities, but wearing a contented smile that indicated his satisfaction with the day's adventures. The drive back to Kensington Palace was quieter than the morning journey, filled with reflection rather than anticipation. Each family member was processing the experiences of the day in their own way, but all were united in the sense that they had participated in something meaningful and transformative. The event had demonstrated that royal service, at its best, created space for authentic human connection, mutual learning, and the kind of community building that could have lasting positive impact on everyone involved. In the weeks following the charity gala, the impact of that remarkable afternoon continued to ripple through the lives of everyone who had participated. The Wales family found themselves changed by the experience in ways they hadn't anticipated, while the charity and the families they served discovered new possibilities for connection and support. George had kept his promise to Marcus, carefully placing the handwritten note in a frame on his desk where he could see it every morning. The message about courage and caring had become a daily reminder that inspired him in his own moments of uncertainty. When faced with challenging situations at school or new public appearances, he would remember Marcus's words about being brave, even when scared. More significantly, George had begun asking more thoughtful questions about the charitable work his parents did. He wanted to understand how different organizations helped people, what problems they were trying to solve, and how he might contribute as he grew older. His questions demonstrated a developing understanding of service that went beyond duty to encompass genuine care for others' well-being. Charlotte had indeed begun correspondence with Emma and Sophia. With Catherine's help in facilitating the letter exchanges, their friendship had blossomed through shared drawings, stories about their daily lives, and continued discussions about art as a way of expressing feelings. Charlotte's artwork had become more expressive and emotionally nuanced, influenced by the techniques she had learned from the charity. The friendship had also led to an unexpected development. Charlotte had asked if she could donate some of her art supplies to the charity, specifically for children who might not have access to quality materials. This gesture, entirely her own initiative, it touched both William and Catherine deeply and resulted in a larger donation program that provided art therapy supplies to children throughout the charity's network. Louis, despite his young age, had retained clear memories of the afternoon and frequently asked when they would see their new friends again. His natural ability to include others and create joyful moments had been reinforced by the positive responses he had received, making him even more confident in social situations and more attuned to other children who might feel left out or shy. For William and Catherine, the event had provided valuable insights into their children's characters and capabilities. They had seen firsthand how their children could handle meaningful responsibility and genuine emotional engagement with others' difficulties. This knowledge influenced their approach to future public engagements and their children's gradual introduction to royal duties. The charity itself experienced unprecedented growth following the event. The authentic nature of the Wales family's engagement had generated significant media coverage. But more importantly, it had inspired other families to seek help and other donors to contribute support. The waiting list for services had grown, but so had the resources available to meet the increased demand. Margaret Thompson had implemented several new programs based on observations from the gala. The success of the collaborative artwork activity had led to regular community art sessions, where families could work together on creative projects while building supportive relationships. The informal parent support groups that had emerged from conversations between William and other fathers had been formalized into ongoing programs. Most significantly, the charity had established a Young Ambassadors program, recognizing that children like Marcus, Emma, and Sophia had powerful stories to share and valuable perspectives to contribute. These young people would work with the charity to help design programs and communicate with other children facing similar challenges. The collaborative artwork created that day had been professionally preserved, and was now displayed in the charity's main office, serving as a daily reminder of what could be accomplished when barriers were removed and genuine connections were allowed to form. Visitors to the charity often commented on the piece, drawn by its vibrant colors and obvious, its collaborative nature. Dr. Mitchell had presented findings from the event at several professional conferences, highlighting how the Wales family's approach had created an ideal environment for therapeutic interaction and community building. The success had led to invitations for the charity to consult with other organizations about incorporating family engagement and peer support into their programming. For the individual families who had participated, the connections made that day had continued to provide support and friendship. Several of the parents had maintained regular contact, sharing resources and advice about navigating their children's needs. The children had formed lasting friendships that transcended their initial therapeutic connections. 6 months later, when the charity held its annual review meeting, the gala was cited as a turning point in the organization's history, not because of the royal attention it had received, but because it had demonstrated a new model for community engagement that put authentic relationship building at the center of charitable work. The Wales family's approach to the event had shown that royal service could be both dignified and deeply personal, formal yet genuine. They had proven that their children could be thoughtful ambassadors for causes they cared about, and that their family's public role could create meaningful opportunities for connection and positive change, as William reflected on the experience. During a quiet evening at home, watching his children play together with the same inclusive spirit they had shown that afternoon, he realized that the gala had been more than a successful charity event. It had been a demonstration of the kind of royal family they were becoming, one that valued authentic relationships, genuine service, and the power of human connection to create positive change in their community. The unforgettable entrance that had begun the day with spontaneous family affection had set the tone for an afternoon that proved the most impactful royal moments happen when protocol serves humanity rather than replacing it.